Morning, everybody. My name is Derick Dahl. I'm the product manager for the iPort brand here at Dana Innovations. So thanks a lot this morning for taking a few minutes to take a look at our products. Dana Innovations is a company that's actually been around for over 30 years, and Scott Struthers and Jeff Spencer, the two founders and still owners of our business, were original founding members of CEDIA. So our business is really deeply rooted in supporting CEDIA, supporting dealers with all of our product lines. Dana Innovations has three brands: iPort, Sonance, and TrueFig. Of course, today we'll be talking about iPort, but all of our brands really our focus is intersecting technology and design and making technology look great and perform really well in a home or an office environment. The iPort brand has actually been around since 2004, so a little over 10 years. And we created iPort in 2004 to really answer a need in the marketplace. At the time, there was a transition occurring where the sources of distributed audio were turning from CD players, CD changers, radios, things like this, to these little mobile devices called iPods. And by 2003, 2004, iPod was really taking off. iTunes for Windows had just come out in 2003, and every computer user in the world could buy an iPod, put their music on it, and take that iPod with them wherever they went. And so we had a lot of requests from users of Sonance products, speakers and amplifiers, to use their iPods with those distributed audio systems. And it wasn't a great way to do that. So whereas others saw sort of a threat to our industry of sort of these iPods taking away business from our audio sources, we saw it as an opportunity to really embrace something that was inevitable and to create a great user experience for the end users using distributed audio products. So we created the iPort IW dock in 2004, and our focus really was sharing music, connecting those mobile devices with those distributed audio systems, and really later, as that evolved, home automation systems, full-fledged home automation systems. In 2010, things kind of shifted for us as we looked at iPad and really the iPhone a few years before it, that now we have these mobile devices that can do so much more than be a source for audio. They could be full-fledged computers and do anything we wanted them to do. So we started to shift our brand in 2010 and starting to embrace the iPad as what we saw was the future touch panel for our industry. So we created the control mount in 2010. It was the world's first way to mount an iPad in a wall. And it was really interesting because the response at the time was similar to when we launched iPort in 2004. There was a lot of concern about the iPad being a threat to the touch panel business. Again, we saw iPad as something inevitable, just as iPhone and iPod before it, and we wanted to embrace that inevitability and really create an enhanced user experience for homeowners and businesses to use iPads as these touch panels to control all the technology in those spaces. We followed up Control Mount with LaunchPort a year later, and we have a few other products down the line. There's a brand new product that you will see in the slide deck that didn't make my timeline called Surface Mount. We just launched it at CEDIA. It's an exciting new product to add to our set of products and tools to integrate iPads, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But the first thing I want to do is I really want to focus on LaunchPort, because LaunchPort has been the blow-away success, I think, for us and for our dealers the past several years. So LaunchPort is this great way to take an iPad, to use it as a touch panel or as a display on the wall, but then take it with you and have convenient places to give it a home throughout your home. So LaunchPort is a two-part system, a sleeve and a station. There's a station for a wall, a station for tabletop, and we can charge the iPad without wires. We can mount it with magnets. So the result is something really unique that doesn't exist in any other product, even today, 4 or 5 years into the LaunchPort business. So we're keeping the iPad always charged. We're giving it a home, And what we're also doing is we're protecting the iPad. When you take that iPad off the wall, you want it to be protected because it's in your hands, it's moving around. So we're accomplishing all of that in this product line. The launch port sleeves, a lot of people ask, well, how does the iPad go in? Well, it's very easy. It's just a slip-in sleeve. So there's two parts, a top and a bottom. On the back, you can see that there's a space for connecting the inductive charging and the magnetic mounting portion to a station. Once the iPad is mounted onto the station, you can rotate it anywhere 360 degrees, and it will stop at 90-degree increments. The wall station is powered with low-voltage wires and connects to the wall with conventional drywall anchors. And so our system, a launch port system of a station and a sleeve is $349 retail. Stations are $199, sleeves are around $149. And we have two different color options for stations, a silver and a black base station, and a white and a black wall station, so that you can really try to blend in this technology with the decor and the environment. And we also have two different colors of sleeves. We have our glossy white sleeves and our soft touch black sleeves. What you see here is our current launch port sleeve offering, the AM2 sleeve, which actually supports iPad mini 1, 2, and 3. In December, that will start to support the iPad mini 4, which is a little bit longer than the prior 3 iPad mini models. So we're making a modification to that product, and it will ship with support in December. The AP5 sleeve supports both iPad Air models out of the box. We also still make and sell sleeves for older iPad models, but just in limited quantities. So we still have sleeve models for iPad 2, iPad 3, and iPad 4. Those are the full-size iPads, iPad 2 and 3 having a 30-pin connector, and iPad 4 having a Lightning connector. So launch port, hold, charge, protect. It's really that unique combination of mounting without wires, without fuss, the ease of mounting and dismount, and the ability to take it around your space as a true mobile device. And you can see here really the impact that our color options have and really blending the launch port technology into different decors. Whether it's a white wall station and sleeve on a wall, or maybe a black sleeve in a darker environment. There's the dark wood on the table, so kind of a great way to blend in that technology. Now, one thing that we've done more recently in the past year or so is we've created an accessory for LaunchPort, which we call LaunchPort with buttons. And LaunchPort with buttons, the idea here is that we believe that the best of both worlds of experience of controlling a home is with hard buttons and with software. You can see here that there's instances where it makes sense to have immediate access to key functions for that convenience. So right here, she's going to turn on the lights. And that also translates to businesses as well. In a conference room, what a great opportunity to be able to make an easy way for an employee to walk into a meeting, lower the shades and the lights, and start their meeting. So LaunchPort with buttons, programmable buttons that function completely independent of the iPad, that are a snap-on accessory to the sleeve, have their own battery power, and we have support with many control systems, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So now our LaunchPort system with buttons is three pieces. It's our station, our sleeve, and our sleeve buttons, which are a sleeve top. If we were to open up sleeve buttons, which we actually allow you to do, you can do so by removing two small Phillips screws. You'll actually be able to access the buttons themselves. And we provide 35 iconic printed silicone buttons in the box. And you're able to swap out those buttons. You're also able to swap out the battery if you ever needed to, but it does have a up to 10-year battery life, which is great. So here we can see that we can actually swap out the buttons with the actual ones that matter to us with the correct icons to represent functions and snap it back on. So we have buttons that cover audio transport, lighting and shade control, and some macro labels as well, and a couple blank ones too. So at the heart of LaunchPort with buttons, we're actually a Lutron Pico. a 3BRL, 3-button raise lower. And so inside of the top of the sleeve is the circuit board of a Lutron Pico. So that means that we can do anything a Pico can do in a Lutron system or being used as a keypad outside of a Lutron system with another control system. So we'll dive into that right now. So there's sort of three levels of use that we like to say: simple standalone, simple connected, and integrated. Simple standalone, what does this mean? Well, it means that I can, in 6 seconds, pair launch port buttons with any Lutron dimmer or shade or just any Clear Connect enabled device. I can also do it with a group. So this means that I can walk into a room that has maybe 4 Clear Connect enabled shades. I can, in 6 seconds, 6 to 10 seconds, pair with each one of those shades, and now I'm controlling all 4 of them with the buttons on my sleeve without any control system in between. It's just a direct control with Lutron's Clear Connect 434 megahertz RF technology. The next sort of layer here is if I want to get more complex, I can connect with Lutron systems. So whether that's a Caseta system, radio raw system, homework system, and now my launch board buttons can be used to control deeper functionality within those systems. And again, it's the same process of holding down the pair button for 6 seconds when I'm in the software at the point of adding a new device in the Lutron system. If it's Caseta, it's using the Caseta iOS app. If it's radio raw or homeworks, it's using the PC program that's used to program those control systems. But for me, the thing that's most exciting is using launch port buttons as a keypad for other control systems. So here we have an example where I can push a button in on my launch port buttons, and that can actually enact a macro in a control system. So in this case, the button press is being received by a Lutron bridge. That Lutron bridge is then outputting an IP string that's being received by, in this case, on my picture, an RTI processor. And then that's outputting a command to a Yamaha receiver. And my macro is turn receiver on. So now I have a way to push a button on these hard buttons on my iPad and actually control AV devices in my environment. This is very cool. And not just discrete commands, but also macros. So maybe I want one button. I want to walk into my home theater. I want to push one button and turn on all the devices that are required to have a home theater experience. Well, I can do that with launch port buttons, a Lutron bridge talking to a control system. So the recipe is buttons, bridge, and control system. The buttons are sending communication via one-way Clear Connect, 434 RF, and the bridge is outputting that as an IP string. What happens is every device that is connected to a Lutron system has an ID number, and we use that ID number to then reference when we're programming the macro in the control system. So we're triggering the macro from a button press from our specific device in the Lutron system. And we've got documentation on our website to explain how that works. But the process is pretty straightforward. So these are the list of systems that actually have drivers written for Lutron bridges. And so now we have this way as a gateway to get into controlling all sorts of control systems in the business with buttons on an iPad. And just for some clarification, some people ask about the different levels of Lutron. There's Homeworks, Radio Raw, and Caseta. Caseta and Radio Raw can be found at most AV distribution or electrical distribution. There's the ability to do a press and a release button string on a Caseta system. And then with Radio Raw and Homework systems, there's actually, in addition to that, a press and hold capability as well. So our launch port buttons, we have 4 different models here: black and white for mini, black and white for air. And these, again, are accessories that can connect onto the existing sleeve. You just take the sleeve top that came with the sleeve without buttons and set it aside and use this instead. These are 149 each, making the LaunchBoard button systems are around $500 retail. So here we see LaunchBoard with buttons being used in a classroom environment, and here we see it in a home theater environment. So again, the killer application, I think, is really those media centers where we have the home theater, the great room, the conference room, the classroom to utilize LaunchBoard buttons. Control Mount. Like I was saying before, Control Mount was really the original product that allowed us to segue into supporting iPads, and we still sell this product today. It's a great way to connect an iPad into a wall and to keep it there. It's only 3 millimeters proud from the wall, so it's a near flush install. There's a way of connecting the iPad from an iPad subassembly to a mounting box that goes into the wall, much like a speaker with toggles, and we're powering the iPad with 2-wire low voltage. And we have Control Mount models for the iPad mini and for the iPad Air, $329, $399 respectively. So Control Mount, only 3 millimeters proud. This bezel is paintable actually, so you can paint it any color you like. And it's just a nice clean way to integrate iPad onto a wall. Charge case and stand, I'll talk about just for a brief minute, but this is really a device for the personal iPad where you want to take your iPad from home to work maybe and have a docking station for it and be able to use it while it's docked, while it's charging. So there's a nice thin case that comes with it. Case is actually Apple Smart Cover compatible, so you can snap a smart cover onto it. And the idea here is that it's just a great way to take your iPad to and from multiple locations and protect it while you're on the go. So we do have wireless charging for charge case and stand, much like LaunchBoard, but we're using conductive charging instead of inductive. And we just have a tabletop mount. We don't have a wall mount as well. And we have charge case and stand models for iPad mini, for iPad Air, and in December we'll have support on the mini model for the iPad mini 4. It's about $159, $169 for a charge case and stand system. Again, limited functionality as compared to LaunchBoard. All right, so that is our current lineup, but I do have a new product I want to talk about, which we just announced about 2 weeks ago at CEDIA, and that's called the Surface Mount. The Surface Mount is a way to elegantly integrate iPad onto any surface. So this is an on-wall mount requiring no back box like what you saw on the Control Mount, and we can take the iPad and mount it onto any surface, whether it's a solid surface, wood, drywall, or even glass, which is very cool. So the bezel is actually made out of high-end aluminum and has a high-end finish. It's proud 11 millimeters off the wall, so a little bit different than Control Mount, but it is an on-wall mount, so it's much more easy to install. We have a electronic system that will allow you to power the iPad via PoE or 24 volts. So we give you an option depending on what type of power system you'd like to tap into. The PoE is my favorite because all you need is a PoE switch, and you can run Cat5 cables to each of your surface mounts. It's a nice, clean way to do it. And of course, that allows you to install iPad any surface, anywhere, anyway. So we have our system, which is a bezel and electronics. There's 2 pieces of electronics, which I'll talk more about in just a moment. We have a splitter and we have an injector. The way the iPad installs into a surface mount is it actually snaps into the bezel. It takes about 5 seconds to snap it in, and that's it. There's a mounting bracket. Well, actually, first of all, I'll talk about the splitter. This is the splitter. We can connect either 2-wire or Cat5, Cat6 to the unit to get power to it, and then we have a USB out that goes to the iPad. That fits in a conventional single-game box. So as long as you have a single-game box, then you can actually mount the mounting bracket in any orientation around that, either portrait or landscape. We have screws that are special anchor screws, so you can screw directly into drywall or wood. without requiring anchors. And then we can take our splitter, connect it up, and the iPad magnetically connects to that bracket. You'll also notice there were 2 squares or cubes on that bracket. Those are actually security devices, so you can actually lock the iPad to the wall while it's mounted, which makes it ideal for commercial applications. Now, the bezel isn't just a pretty frame, it actually has a lot of functionality as well. You can use the iPad speaker and microphone while it's connected and mounted in the frame, which is great. So you can use it for intercom purposes, security cameras, things like that. Of course, the security locks, you can access the power button if you need to do a power reset, and it comes in 3 different finishes. They're all aluminum finishes, so an anodized black, anodized silver, or a powder-coated white. So we have our 2 power components, and why would we need to use these? Well, if we're using a PoE switch or if we're using a 24-volt supply, all we need is that splitter that you saw before. But if we want to power from a wall receptacle, then we can use a PoE injector, which converts AC to DC and allows you to run a Cat5, Cat6 cable up to 600 feet to the location of the surface mount. So you can see here the diagrams, PoE switch, just a splitter, 24-volt supply, just a splitter. Interestingly, if you're doing retro and you are going to replace an older device like an old keypad or touch panel, or if you want to connect onto a keypad link, let's say you're using Lutron or CrestNet, you can totally do so if you wanted to consolidate power. And then, of course, if you're plugging into a wall, you use our injector in addition to the splitter. Surface mount products are sold a la carte or as kits. So however you would like to purchase them, we have different options there. Now, in terms of competitive analysis, we took a look at all of the key competitors to our product in the market, and we really wanted to provide all the tools that you'd ever need to make installing an iPad on a wall very, very simple. And so Surface Mount really has the full list of features amidst any of our competitors. We really think it's a great value. Now, in terms of that value, a Surface Mount system with a bezel and a splitter is $399 for mini retail and $449 for Air. And if you need the injectors, well, then it's an extra $50. In terms of availability, we are now shipping the Surface Mount systems and products for iPad mini 1 through 3. In November, we'll be shipping the Surface Mount systems for iPad Air. And in December, we'll be shipping it for iPad mini 4. And of course, you can find out more information on Surface Mount at our website, iPortproducts.com/Surface Mount. We have our data sheets, installation guides, videos. And there's one more thing I want to tell you as well. If you made it to CEA, you probably saw Surface Mount with buttons. So we actually are going to add buttons to the Surface Mount bezels. Those buttons are actually going to be a little bit different than the buttons you saw on the launch port. Because we're keeping the iPad stationary on a wall, we can make them directly IP addressable because they're hardwired. So we are going to, through that same single Cat5 or Cat6 run, allow you to do data, two-way data with our buttons. The buttons will be backlit, and we'll have a custom engraving program. And we'll have a 6-button and a 10-button version, depending on how many buttons you need on the bezel. So this is something that's coming kind of late Q1 in 2016, and we're really excited about this, the ability to consolidate a keypad and an iPad mount into one device we think is really great. So again, Surface Mount with buttons, coming 2016, early 2016. Surface Mount available now for iPad minis, and in just a few weeks for the iPad Air and iPad mini 4. So that's kind of a run through of our product categories. What I wanted to do now is talk about some applications for our products. So residential applications, we see an opportunity to put at least one iPort category, if not multiple iPort categories, on a residential job. What I show here is an example of LaunchPort. LaunchPort is a great device to use even if you don't have a full-fledged control system. Even if you're just using one app for control, like Sonos, for example, or Alarm.com, or what have you, because it's a great convenience to dedicate an iPad as a touch panel to control those systems. So You can also use iPad for unconventional scenarios as well. On the picture on the top right, you see somebody who wanted to actually have 4 launch ports installed in an array, so there's 4 apps that can be run simultaneously to show all sorts of interesting information. So it's sort of an information center for that user. We see LaunchPort being used in common spaces where there's always that home to place the iPads going to roam around. We see LaunchPort great for right by the back door to go take the iPad to control an outdoor audio system. We also see LaunchPort as a great install to control maybe a standalone system like a guest home or a guest bedroom where there's a subsystem or a limited system that doesn't connect with the rest of the home. LaunchPort with buttons is a great drop-in in the theater or in the great room, family room areas where we want to make it really easy to control all of the components that are in the rack there, the receiver and the projector and the Blu-ray player and the satellite TV. So that's a great place for those. Control mount and now surface mount is a great tool to keep an iPad locked down in one spot so it never walks away, so that geographically in key areas we always know we can walk up and use a touch panel. Places like the entry, the master bedroom. We've seen a lot of control mounts and surface mounts actually used in the kitchen areas. And if you have a multi-level space, 1 per floor, it's sort of a great rule of thumb so that you always have something to go to control lights, to control security, in case you can't find that mobile iPad running around there. And then charge case, like I said, is that great device to use between home and office. We see a lot of opportunities to take older devices in the wall and replace them with newer iPort devices. So in this case, I have sort of an old distributed audio system from maybe 10 years ago. I have an IW dock, a little distributed audio amp, I have some speakers, and I have some keypads, right? So we see an opportunity to actually go back to these jobs that were done a number of years ago and upgrade these systems, upgrade the processor and the amps to maybe Sonos and some newer ways of doing distributed audio, and upgrade the control pieces to iPort devices where now we're running those apps on the iPads to control those systems. So, at most of these installation points, you have either a cat wire or you've got a 4 conductor, and in all those cases, you can use that existing infrastructure to power a LaunchPort or to power a surface mount. LaunchPort is a great device to cover a single gang spot, and surface mount is a great device to cover a double gang spot or a single gang spot. So a lot of opportunity to go back and make money on the jobs that we did years ago. Commercial applications. We do really well into the 3 key verticals: hospitality, retail, and commercial. When I say commercial, I really mean office, corporate office use of iPads. And so I'd like to talk about that one in particular, corporate office use, and how our products can be great for those types of installs. And there's a couple ones I want to highlight real quick. Control mount and surface mount. There are a lot of offices now that really want to utilize distributed audio systems or digital signage systems, and so all the more reason to need to put an iPad stationary on the wall so that it doesn't walk away, so that's available for the users, the employees, to utilize that. LaunchPort we see is a great tool to use in the conference rooms to control those conference rooms. So here you see just a couple of examples of our products in practice and some businesses. There's 2 apps I want you to know about that can really help to enhance the technology in a business. This one is called EventBoard, and EventBoard is an easy way to turn an iPad into a digital sign and install it outside of a conference room, displaying the meeting schedule for that conference room. So here we see an app that's showing meeting information. It'll be installed outside of that conference room, and also it can be used to schedule events as well. If an employee is walking by and they want to grab that conference room for later in the day, they can tap the Add Event button and they can go ahead and schedule that right on the spot. Event Board talks to Microsoft Exchange and Google Calendar. So pretty much every business in the world is using Exchange or Google Calendar, and it can communicate with that and displays the resource information for that room resource in either Exchange or Google Calendar. The app is also customizable, so you can drop in the company's logo. So here you see the Tesla logo there. You can arrange the layout differently. You can customize the colors. And so it's a great way to really up the ante on the professionalism and the embracing of technology in those businesses. So that's called Event Board. Again, a great tool to use with a surface mount or a control mount. We also want you to know about an app called Lobby Connect. And Lobby Connect is made by the same company, actually. So the company's called Ender Labs, same company that you just saw that made Event Board. Lobby Connect is a way to simplify the process of visitors checking into an office. So Lobby Connect can communicate with the Exchange or Google Calendar contacts for business and allows the guest to find the employee that they're here to see. So they can use the app to actually notify them. The app will send a text message to the employee to let them know that their guest is here. It also captures the guest information, so it's a digital guest book. And it can even communicate with badge printers to print out a badge so that guest is properly identified as they're moving throughout the space, the office space. So great use of LaunchPort in the reception area. And again, a great way to increase the professionalism for that business using the Lobby Connect app by Ender Labs. The last thing I want to cover here is some technical information about some of our products. We went into more depth about how to power a surface mount, but I want you to just have this information on LaunchPort and Control Mount as well. LaunchPort and Control Mount can utilize either 2-wire or CAT. The Control Mount and LaunchPort systems have a 2-pin Phoenix connector where we actually terminate power. So if you're using 2-wire, you just connect up to there. If you're using CAT, you would snap off the RJ45 and you'd use 2 groups of 4 conductors to get the most cable run out of that wire. So using 16-gauge wire, we recommend 150 foot as sort of your planning length for that wire. You can go a little bit further, but that will always keep you safe. Control Mount is actually a 12 to 24 volt system. LaunchPort is a 12 to 15 volt system. So we have 2 different power supplies that we provide. LaunchPort requires 24 watts. So it has a 30 watt power supply to give you headroom to get to 24 over distance. And Control Mount is a 15 watt supply because the iPad itself only requires up to 12 watts. So it's a little bit different than the LaunchPort system. Because we're transmitting energy over the air and we're doing inductive charging, with LaunchPort we require a bit more power than the Control Mount. A lot of people ask, can you power multiple iPort units off of one power supply? Yes, if you're using a commercial type power supply. So in this case, we're using a 13.8 volt supply, which has 15 amps output. That gives you 145 watts of continuous power. And in this case, you could actually wire up all of the control mounts in a star wire configuration back to that unit, and you can power up to 12 control mounts. Doing the math, that means you can also power 6 LaunchPort wall stations off that one supply. So in a lot, particularly commercial applications, we see deployment of these commercial power supplies being used with our products. And as long as it's within the 12 to 15 volt range for LaunchPort or the 12 to 24 volt range for control mount, then it's no problem to use those power supplies. In terms of compatibility, we have pretty wide compatibility for all of our iPort products, as I spoke about. This compatibility chart is also on our website in our support section. So if you ever have a question about which model of iPort product to purchase, you can find it on the website. And also, like I said, the one iPad model that's not mentioned here, but that will be officially supported, will be the iPad Mini 4 in December. for the launch port and 2 sleeve, and the charge case for iPad mini. Again, our support site, iportproducts.com/support, is a great resource. It has a knowledge base, so you can actually just type in a question or type in a series of words, and it will automatically pop up the results of that based on all the hundreds of documents and articles that we have on our website. So it's a great, easy tool to find what you need. And also our iPort site is a responsive website, so it'll work beautifully on a mobile device. So if you're out on a job site and you have your iPhone or your Android phone or an iPad and you want to quickly access information, all of that functionality works just as well on those mobile devices. Well, that leads us to the end of the iPort training. And I wanted to, at this point in time, open it up to any questions that you might have, and we can address those at this time.
I'm gonna unmute everybody here. So if you have any questions, if you want to type them into the chat box, we can do it that way as well. There was a question that came up here that, let me scroll back a second. And with the new buttons on the surface mount, will they be multicolored to change with status, or are they single color?
That's a good question. They are going to, the backlight will be an RGB LED, but it will not change the status. So you'll be able to set up the color and the intensity, and then you'll even be able to schedule that depending on what time of the day it is, but you won't be able to change that dynamically as status changes in the control system.
Okay. All right, do we have any other questions? Here, hold on a second. There's another one. Question, since we can use the Ethernet with PoE, is there a way to have the iPad hardwired to the network and not use Wi-Fi?
That's a great question. Yeah, right now, Apple actually limits how an iPad can communicate via TCP/IP. So right now, Apple only limits that to Wi-Fi. There are some interesting sort of things on the horizon in terms of a particular application being able to use a particular piece of hardware to do data I/O via TCP/IP with a specially made hardware device. But that's not something that currently exists and is not what our system provides. So still, at this point, you'll be communicating on the network via Wi-Fi for the iPads. But in the case of the buttons, those buttons on Surface Mount will be hardwired, though, via the Ethernet cable.
Okay. Another question. Any chance the buttons will work natively with Crestron and instead of going through a gateway? And go ahead.
So I'm assuming he's talking about surface mount with buttons. If that is what he's talking about, the answer is yes. We already have a Crestron driver written for Crestron to communicate directly between the surface mount buttons and a Crestron system.
Okay, any other questions? It doesn't look like any more questions are coming through here. All right. Okay, hold on one second. There is another question that just came through. Yes, the webinar will be available in a recording, and I will be converting it as soon as we finish up here, and I will commit to you that I will have this recorded webinar in your hands, a link to it in your hands by Monday morning, if not sooner. So yes, we'll make this available. It will also be on our YouTube page, so you'll be able to access it in the future. So, all right, any other questions? Okay, it looks like the questions have. There's no more questions. So, with that, I just want to thank Derick a lot for doing this training for us, and much appreciated, and we look forward to, if anybody needs any product, again, at the 15% discount, please send the orders directly to me. I will process, and at the end, I will be going through, pulling out all the emails, and we'll be doing a raffle for a surface mount. So, again, thanks, everybody, for your time. Happy Halloween, and look forward to talking to you all soon.
Thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye.